Hey guys, Overlord Prime here, and I'm going to be bringing you something a little different this time. Today I'm going to do something of a replay review, but it's going to be the start of a new series that I've wanted to try for a while. I don't really know what the name's going to be, but I'm thinking something along the lines of map analysis or map reviews. And the whole point is to showcase my thought process when games develop and how I read the minimap. And this is something I've wanted to do for a while because I understand not many people make videos focused on map reading and how to rotate and how to react accordingly. So we're just going to see how this goes. So I'm playing my 13105, and one of the first things you always want to do when you play a light tank is you want to read the matchup. So in this case I'm going to pause and we're going to look at the lineup. So I'm playing a 13105, and you always want to see what is your counter, right? Your matchup. In this case it's going to be the RHM Panzerwagen, okay? And already here, we have an advantage in tier 10 lights. The RHM has terrible camouflage. And what this means is, in the foliage areas of the map, where all the bush lines and the trees are going to be, I have a light tank advantage. Because while he has better view range means nothing if you hit a certain camouflage threshold, which prevents them from spotting you. Whereas if you don't have any camo at all, right, you can spot through it. On our tier 9 matchups, we have two tier 9 lights. We have a G-SOAR, which is one of the best tier 9 lights in the game, and we have RU-251, which is a decent spotting light, but it's more of a hybrid combat scout. 1390 on their team is going to be a decent combat and scout, and the Char is going to have decent camo, but it doesn't have that great of a view range, so it's good in the early game where there's a lot of close range encounter and engagements, where speed is more valuable. But towards the end game where you might want vision control, it's not going to be holding up that well. So just from this matchup alone, because the RHM is going to be my competition, it's going to be a better option for me to use Commander Vision System because it'll allow me to control the hills. It'll allow me to use my camouflage advantage and their camouflage disadvantage against them and spot them through the foliage. So while a lot of players might consider a damage setup with vertical stabilizer or improved aiming unit, that type of setup is not going to be useful when it comes to outspotting and controlling. Let's see, I'm going to actually increase the map size a little bit, make it a little easier to see that. So naturally, the early position is going to be me taking the obvious bush line right here. I know I'm not going to get spotted because I have, again, the camo advantage. So like I said before, I can outspot RHM. Even though he's in the bushes, he has bad base camo. I see a Bat Chat. He's going to be a priority target because an autoloader in the end game is more dangerous than a light tank that I can counter in the center. So I'm dropping lights and repoking. I do see Centurion Action X pushing middle. This is very dangerous because this is actually a counterplay to us. He can push to our side of the hills, and he can control us by proxy spotting us. So I'm going to take a rotation a little bit further out to the left and try getting a shot on the side of his turret when he pokes. I do get a free shot. I'm not going to get another one. At the range that he's at, even though I'm double bushed, when you fire, a general rule of thumb, if someone is within about 120 meters away, even if double bushed, you will be spotted. There's very few exceptions. So when I fire in this position, you have to be aware that it's going to be a one-to-one trade where I might get a free shot, but I give him information that I'm there. Now, one thing to understand about this situation is that the Centurion Action X has control over this position. He has something that I like to call soft control. And the reason is he's taking a very aggressive position right here. It's a very, very forward position, but it's not at risk. And the reason is he has a lot of supporting angles that we can't control. He has a Bat Chat right here. He has an RHM here, right? Or even both these tanks could be over here. And what this means is if we poke over to try shooting him, we're going to get shot in retaliation. It's not going to be a one-to-one trade, us to the Centurion. It's going to be a potential 1-to-3 trade, us to the two other tanks in the back. And on top of this, trying to get shots on his side turret here is really risky because if you look at the foliage positions here, right, there's an opening gap here, right? It's conveniently a straight line through here. And there's another gap right here. And this is really unfortunate because even though you can get a bush line to your left here to poke him, if he spots you through these gaps for shooting or whatever reason, just you break through the bushes and he sees you, then what ends up occurring is you're now exposed onto the left side over here, which is exactly what I mentioned was a threat. So overexposing the hills to shoot him is not going to be worth it. It's going to be one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of players make against players in this position. And this is why I say he has soft control. We can easily dump and kill him, but there's going to be a high risk, and the amount of information control he has right now is very good. He has a hold down position, he can poke with his turret to get information on things behind us, and he has proxy control over this region here. So of course I'm still going to try finding shots. I know I can't get spotted as long as I keep aware of the fact that he can spot me through these openings. Poking the middle to get information. Again, I outspot the RHM, and there I just confirmed it again, I can outspot him. Progetto is poking and trying to take the angle that I just mentioned was very dangerous, and he may get punished heavily for this. So he definitely just got spotted by the Centurion backing up. And now we have information on the RHM and the Bat Chat. This situation has actually gone very bad. The Centurion Action X is in the center. The G-Sor had pushed in to get some damage, but it's not going to be a favorable trade. He does 240 damage. The tanks in the middle all do 300 plus. The Zero line has had an aggro play, so we're going to lose a 430U here, and they're going to take a VZ and a TNH, a tier 9 and tier 10 autoloader that's very, very strong in defensive play, and basically just wrestle control over the Zero line. So they have a very strong anchor here, which is something that we cannot break. We lost a tier 10 basically in terms of health. We lost an actual tier 10. So we're down 2 tier 10s. We're down Zero line control. We have no way to contest the middle, which essentially means that this flank is going to be a stalling flank. We cannot break out of it yet. We may not even break out of it, but we cannot do any aggressive plays because we'll put ourselves at even a bigger disadvantage every time we try. So all we can do is play defensive. So right now, knowing that Zero line's at threat, I cannot do anything too crazy. Centurion Action X is trying to rotate to proxy me, but you can see I'm trying to keep out of his proxy range by driving just outside of it. I know he can't poke the middle. I'm going to rotate, see if I can get side shots on him. I could get spotted by 1390, that's fine. But again, it highlights another problem we have here. A 1390 poking the center like that is very dangerous. And it's not because he's a 1390, it's because the information he gives his team. Now the enemy knows that we don't really have much here. We definitely don't have anything behind us. And we do not have anything here. We do not have anything out here, right? He lights this entire region, which lets the enemy know there's no supporting vehicles in these spots. The 1-2 line right now is going to lose. And the way you read this is the 140 is pressuring a close angle, the Minotaur and the T95 are moving up close, and one big problem we have here is we do have a STRV and a Kunstpanzer and a T30, and you might say this is a very strong defensive angle and position we have. The T30 is isolated. He is sitting on top of a ridge. The tanks at the bottom can shoot him, and when they have a Tortoise and an AMX and a 277 here, that's going to allow this T30 to get crossfire to death. On top of this, the T95 sniping in the back over here, he's not going to be able to do much because it's going to take too long for him to rotate to any meaningful position. So essentially, on the low ground, it's a 2v3 situation, STRV Kunstpanzer against Minotauro, T95, 140. They're going to die eventually. The T30 is caught in the open in a bad spot. He's going to die eventually. The AMX M4 is caught on the low ground in a 1v2. He may not die that quickly, but if he gets pushed by 2 tanks, he's pretty much going to collapse and fold. And then when he dies, the Super Conk's at risk. So in this type of situation, the entire northwest quadrant of this map is lost. We can potentially save a Super Conk. If a Super Conk in this situation were you need to immediately back up and play extremely defensive and basically run to the east side of the map. Everything else on the map, pretty much lost on that side. So I'm going to rotate further out. I'm going to see if I can get shots on the 140. He's overcommitted a little bit towards the rock, and I do have shots on his side turret here. And this is the only way I can help stall. So our AMX M4 died on the 4 line. This is very bad. Our T30 is now overexposed. He cannot escape and he cannot run. So he gets picked off. So again, what I've mentioned earlier is happening now. They're going to start pressuring the low ground. I'm going to get a few cheeky shots here. I'm going to go for a second one. I miss. I'm not going to go for a third. He's going to be aimed in my direction. He does try taking a shot at me. So what's happening here is exactly what I mentioned. The Super Conk's now backing up. It's a little too late. The M4 has been dead for about 10 to 15 seconds. The low ground's collapsed. The T95 does have supporting shots, but when the Tortoise climbs this ramp, he's going to have a very nice protective barrier between him and the T95. So it's going to be a 1v1 between a Super Conk and Tortoise, and that's going to be about an equal trade. But you have to consider the fact that there's a 277 here, an AMX here, and a 1390 that's floating in the middle ridges. So he's potentially fighting a 1v4, which essentially means he's going to die. Also, he's reversing, so he can't get away quickly. This is where I would consider the Super Conk unsavable. It is not worth me risking a maneuver to save him. And if you were to try, the maneuver you would do is a push down this ramp here. You're not going to get lit by the low ground. Go around the side here and shoot the Tortoise in the back. But that's very, very risky because even if I get a clip out into the Tortoise and it allows a Super Conk to kill him, there's still the threat of an AMX coming behind. And if that occurs, I can get chased out. The worst case scenario, I die. The best case scenario, if that happens, is I may take 2 shots. And a 3-to-2 shot trade in an autoloader, where you control the engagements, is very, very unfavorable because you essentially just chose a bad engagement on purpose. So the best play here is to rotate back to the east, back to where my allies are, and try using them as anchors and play the autoloader on the outside, right? Orbit my allies, get some nice picks. I am floating on this western side of the hills to see if I can maybe get a shot or two to support my ally. I do proxy a 1390, and I'm going to see if I can pick him out. He is on the wide angle of the bull, which means I can actually poke the inside where I'm looking at right now, and I can get a free shot of damage on him. I'm wary that the enemy may try to poke over and shoot me. Get one free shot on 1390, try going for a second one, I do not get it. At this point, the entire middle is collapsed. I need to get as much free damage as I can so we have a chance of taking back the center. I get 1 shot, I get 2, and I trade 1 shot in return for myself. That was very much worth it. Centurion getting punished for 1 and I'm getting 2 shots of punish on the RHM is a 3-to-1 trade. Very favorable because now it gives us a health advantage in the bull. They've rotated a Bat Chat into the center. This now has negated that HP advantage we just got. Again, 3-to-1 trade just happened, but now they have a Bat Chat which has a clip and HP, so they now have control of the bull again. But you have to understand that we have a 277 at full HP. He's going to be an anchor tank. And an anchor is going to be a tank that's very hard for the enemy to pick off and kill, and what I have to do is make sure I play around him. And this is because in order for this guy to die, they need to have an overcommit of the Bat Chat, an overcommit of the Centurion, an overcommit of the AMX, and potentially the RHM. Basically, a 3-to-4 tank overcommit to kill him, because he can easily back off onto these hills, and he'll be safe. Playing this area now is going to be very dangerous, which is why you see me starting to rotate towards the 0 line. And the reason is the enemy is going to slowly push into the high ground. The T95 again is going to get shots, but he's going to eventually get picked off because they do have the low ground advantage, 3 tanks pushing up, and then he'll get crossfired by the center. So what this means is he's going to maybe delay an enemy push just by being a distraction or an HP pinata, but they're going to eventually take these positions right here, like this corner. They're going to eventually push out here on this hill on the right. And what this means is this position is compromised. It may not be compromised now, but it will be soon. So holding this position gives you no advantages because you can get dived by the tanks here. If you stall for too long, they can push you on the outside. And it's just overall very low value in terms of damage potential. So it's a very, very high risk, low reward to hold this position. Instead, it's better to go towards the east side where the enemy has very light control and they don't really have as much of a strong crossfire as every other position available right now. 277 gets a nice free shot of damage. This is one of the biggest situations that occurs right now. The VZ originally held the 0 line defensively, and he is, objectively speaking, the weakest part of this puzzle. We originally could not push a zero line because we had a VZ threatening us. That's a very strong defensive tank. He can continuously grab information on our angles, see if we're pushing up, and the enemy can obviously react to that. But because he's pushing in on his own, and we know we just got center control, the 277 punished the light tank here, the Centurion's one shot, the Bat Ched is obviously playing a little defensive, then we can easily counter push into the zero, right? So he is isolating himself, he's weakening their own position and control on this side of the map. This is our only out. By killing him, we open up the zero line play, and again, take zero, we can rotate out of that because now they don't have control over the entire map, and we're no longer caught in a concave. I tried going for a shot to kill the 1390, which would have been huge, but it's not worth the risk of me getting punished by the RHM. So instead, I do a commit with the 277 to kill the VZ. Nice shots. Instead of reloading, I'm going to go see if I can get another shot of damage here. I get a very, very nice shot on his hull armor. Now that we have zero line control, we can now push down through zero line and slowly regain control of the map. And here is why. Now that he has no control, we can take the bushes here as a light tank. I can use this to spot angles out here, and I can use this to counter spot light tanks here. Again, I have the camo advantage. I'm using a camo setup and commander vision system to outspot them. And when that occurs, what I can do next is I can go down to the road here, and this gives you proxy range on the back side of these ridges, just in case they're sitting there. And once you have proxy range and they're not there, you push into the bushes, you then have a camo advantage, and you can control the center bowl. And this needs to be done relatively quickly. I cannot be wasting too much time sitting. So when I see a 277 being aggressive, I need to react accordingly and move next to him. I see a free shot of damage here. I'm going to go for a light tank kill, even if I take damage in return, immediately back out. Because again, we don't have control of the bowl, but we're contesting it right now. I'm not going to reload because, as we saw, the enemy is trying to be very aggressive towards our AB line and potentially cut across through the CD line, which is the close angles here. I need to punish any tank that gets close because one big weakness of this position we have is if they get control of the bunker on this right side, they can hide behind it and control the hills here. As you can see, it's very hard to poke this side without being lit by the west side or even this north angle. So there's a nice cross here, which they can spot you if you don't position correctly. And there's too many gaps here to really guarantee that. And they can also use that to control the north, right? So if you look at the north, there's a hill position here, but it gets spotted because you're so close to them. And there's a north position, 8-9, that the Progetto is using that also gets spotted and controlled. So we cannot let them get into this position for free. And if they do get there, they should be very, very low HP to the point where they don't want to be poking. So my concern is not getting lit on the left, but making sure I control the right. I immediately see a Waffentrager. Again, he is the bigger threat. I have a shot on Skoda, but the Waffentrager getting to that bunker is going to be a bigger problem for us than a Skoda running away from a far away position. Now he's one shot. He did not get to the bunker. We have an advantage now. We've taken back control of the map. We're still at an HP disadvantage. They still have a positional control on the north and mid. So I decide to rotate to see if I can punish this Minotaur or even spot him. Right now we do have a pretty good position going on, but I can't really do much aggressively. I can't rotate. I don't want to commit to where I was just looking because a Bat Ched again could poke over and clip me. The Minotaur was there, the T95 is probably behind him, and the Tortoise can also support. So it's much safer for me to play the bull and slowly sneak my way through it. I see a Skoda trying to play the middle. I need to get free shots of damage if he makes this cross. I did make a mistake there. I should have waited and just aimed in my third shot. I may have had a better chance of hitting it. It wasn't guaranteed, but you know, having 3 decently likely shots is better than having 1 bad shot at the end whiff, especially because I'm moving. 277 is rushing very quickly towards the south, trying to get free picks. I'm going to aggro and try getting information control here. Now at this point, this is pretty important. We've lit pretty much every tank on their team. One of the biggest mistakes that a lot of players will do here is they will go all the way to A9. A9 is pretty smart for a lot of reasons, and it's because A9 can shoot the cap and reset the bat chat where he is, but in this type of situation, resetting isn't too much of a concern. And the reason is, their tanks can easily be punished. The bat chat may be capping by himself, and that gives me about a minute. The T95 is going to be caught in the open, and because he's so large, you can easily track and reset him permanently. And I have more than enough time to rotate to an outside angle and punish them. So going A9 right now is a little premature. You're wasting a lot of time for something that may not develop. And also by going there, you open a play for the enemy where the bat chat can rush through the center and kill any tanks in the middle, at which point you're isolated in the northeast corner. This is why this is a very risky play to do right away. Instead, the better play is to get as much damage as possible, anchor around your team here, right where 277 south, WZ is to my right, and that way, if they try to push any tank, you always have supporting angles and supporting shots, so there's a crossfire that always occurs, where there's going to be a 2v1 no matter what. I do see a 277 gets Skoda kill. I'm going to rotate out. I do like the T95. And we're going to see if we can get some free shots of damage. The bat chat is clipping out through an opening here. That is a huge shot of damage against a bat chat. Try getting shot on the T95, but I'm not going to get it. I only have 2 shots in clip. I can push the bat chat and hope that someone else on my team also punishes. What you just saw there is pretty important. The T95 just shot and did 400 damage to my platoon mate. That's huge. One of the biggest pieces of information that just gained right there, that the T95 is using the small gun. I do see a Tortoise at 1270 HP. I cannot one-clip him. So my choice is to either push the bat chat and hope an ally punishes him so I can 2-shot him, or do a safe play and reload and get the Tortoise. And in this case, I see nobody's punishing the bat chat, no one's getting close. I opt for a reload and play it safe and go for a Tortoise. I do see a Tortoise, he sees me. So in this situation, I do need to rush and get behind the Tortoise as quick as I can. The Tortoise is isolated. If he turns towards me, this is really, really good for us. He is now 2-shot. I need to make sure my 2 shots connect. Again, the bat chat is very smart. If you notice, this entire time he's been reacting to our allies. Whenever someone fires or gives away position or is turning the wrong way, he immediately pounces on it. So that earlier mention of me rotating to A9 to reset cap and a potential bat chat play pushing into the center and punishing my vehicles and my teammates would have potentially happened, and that would have put me in a way worse off position than I am in right now. Essentially, we traded a Tortoise for a WZ. I tried rushing a shot, there's no way for me to get another clean shot. And I'm going to reload. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the distance, and I'm going to try getting some spotting control so I make sure I know where the bat chat is at all times. It's a little risky sometimes to do this because you do end up trading information about where both vehicles are going to be. He knows where I am, I know where he is, but it's more important that I know and control his positioning. So the bat chat just ran through cap. The T95 is still behind him, and he looks like he's going down A line. We cannot allow the bat chat to escape. The bat chat right now cannot run down the 2 line. If he does, it's going to be very hard to dig him out later on if we have to find him. I re-ping A7 because I need the G-SOAR to go up to A8, A7, the bush line, and get some information and make sure they're not pushing out of here. And potentially we can do a crossfire where I go low ground on the 3, and he go across the A line, and we get a crossfire and, ping pong the enemy between us. So my goal here is to not let the bat chat escape. He's a 2-shot for me, I'm a 3-shot for him. If I get 1 shot on him, that's already a huge trade. So I'm expecting here, I poke the corner, he does 0 damage. Here is where a trade needs to occur. This is where those situations that a lot of players I find misplay. There's two choices I have here. I can either back out and not take another shot of damage, or I can trade 1-for-1. He is going to be loaded a fraction of a second faster than I am, but his reverse speed and acceleration is not good enough for him to escape a trade. So in this case, I'm 3-shot, he's 2-shot. That is a pretty bad situation for me because I have worse gun handling, I have bigger bloom because my speed's higher, and he has a larger clip, which is going to be more favorable for him. So in these type of situations, putting him at 1 shot and leaving me at 2 is favorable because later on in a knee-jerk reaction, like if I see him and I poke him, getting that 1-shot potential in that 1 shell, the first shot of my clip, is going to be more valuable than leaving him at 2-shot. So here I opt for the trade. And now I control the corner, because now he doesn't have the ability to trade with me. He knows I'm holding that corner. We drop lights, and I'm going to reload and immediately rotate. The G-Sor is pushing across the A-line, and this is where I get a little concerned, because he's charging into 2 vehicles that are expecting a flank. The Bat Chat just saw me anchoring down that low ground. It's going to be a pretty obvious assumption that someone's going to try getting behind them. So I heard the Bat Chat fire once, and I hear him fire twice. So the Bat Chat has 1 shell remaining. And I know the T95 has the small gun, but I'm still 2-shot. If Bat Chat shoots me and then T95 shoots me, I'm in trouble. But I decided to take the high ground here and decide to push in. And if you're wondering why I didn't push the low ground on the 3 line when the G-Sor was making that move, here's why. The big difference is the positional engagements. If I angled up to A3, right, postured up here, and then pushed up the A line, I'm climbing up a hill. And one of the big disadvantages of climbing hills is your acceleration is not going to be as great, and because of that, your top speed is not going to be good. And when you're climbing up a hill, there's a lot of very sharp elevation points here, right? There's a sharp climb here, sharp climb here. And what this means is the speed advantage I have is completely negated if they manage to kill the G-Sor and climb up. Which means if I go A3, they kill the G-Sor at A4, the Bat Chat can potentially climb away and run. He'll be on flat ground escaping from me, and I'll be climbing up during that whole time. And this negates the speed advantage that I have as a light tank. Whereas the alternative is if I climb onto the hill and they kill the G-Sor, I can immediately run down the hill full speed, catch up to the Bat Chat, and kill him. So really the whole consideration here is, what is going to be the worst case scenario of me versus the Bat Chat? Can he escape if I go from high ground, or can he escape if I go from low ground? And usually they will escape if you go from low ground, if your team does not properly box them in from the high ground. So this is a more safe approach to this engagement, and that's why I take the high ground. What's most important here that you'll notice is the Bat Chat does spot me, and I know he has 1 shot remaining, but he does something here that gives away what I'm about to do next. He immediately runs. If you spot somebody and you have 1 shot remaining and you know you have support of a tank behind you, one of the best plays to make is to play defensively, right? If you notice the hills here, look how sharp that angle is. It's going to be very hard for me to really get a nice shot on him while I'm moving full speed. Whereas if he's waiting for me, he can easily get that first shot. And knowing that there's an ally behind him, it's a 1-2 tap. But by running away, he gives away that he's out of rounds, and this is why I decide to engage, because the only threat left is a T95, which does 400 damage. So I know I can waste 2 shots on him. I'm not going to stop and aim in just because I cannot let him go. And my angles right now are not too great. You see how close I am to that ground? If he drives a little further to the left, I'll be aiming and shooting dirt. So I need to drive further on the open to make sure I connect. T95 misses. I make sure to get to his side, and I punish. And there you go. That is a victory. That was the endgame scorecard for that match. A very, very good game in my opinion. That whole game, it was pretty much a defeat, and it was a very hard fought battle until one situation developed, and that was the VZ-55 pushing zero line and opening that entire side to our team. If the VZ had held that angle long enough for the enemy Batchat to rotate from E7 to E9, that game would not have been winnable, or if it was, it would have been very, very difficult. Difficult enough to the point where no one on my team could have made mistakes. So that one small error one tank made on one side of the map, thinking that he had won, was the only error they had to make to change a near guaranteed defeat into a very close victory. Anyways guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys like this type of video, please let me know in the comments. Tell me what you like about it, tell me what you hate about it, any changes. This is something I've considered doing for a long time, and this is my first foray into making something like this. There have been requests throughout the years for me to do something like this, and I decided to try it. And anyways, thanks for viewing. I'll see you guys in the next one. You have a good one.